Hey everybody, Mark and Steve here with a holiday offer for you as we enter into the Christmas and the New Year's season. You know, we know that recovery can be difficult, and we know as addicts in long-term recovery how hard it is to come into the holidays. You know, you're looking back on the year, and here's another year where we haven't beaten this addiction. Here's another year where we're trapped in betrayal trauma. Here's another year where our coupleship is suffering. Well, right now, from December 15th, 2025 through January 31st of 2026, we are doing our annual holiday promotion. It's the best promotion that we do all year long to try to start 2026 off right. In addition to our 2-week free trial, we're also offering $150 off of your first month subscription here at Dare to Connect. All you need to do is use the code 150OFF D2C, all caps, no spaces when you check out.
And what that means is for both you as you're an addict in recovery and partners in betrayal trauma healing, that's 6 weeks of our Dare to Connect program for less than $150. That's less than the cost of one therapy session just about anywhere. So come and join us. Be sure again at checkout to enter that code 150OFF D2C, all caps. And we'll look forward to seeing you on our D2C program.
We will catch you all in 2026. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the PBSC podcast. This is Mark Castleman. I'm with Steve Moore. We have episode 313. I don't know whether that's a weird number, bad luck.
It is a new year, by the way. If you're watching this at the time of the recording, or at the time of this release, it's we're 2 days out of starting 2026.
We are. I mean, this podcast will apply anytime.
Of course.
But I think that the topic that we're looking at is very appropriate for going into a new year. And if whenever you're listening to this, just considering it a new period of change in your life, a new start, whenever that is.
Yeah.
Now, the title's pretty hard hitting. Face
is.
the devastation you have heaped upon your partner and then choose to change for real. That's some pretty potent stuff right there.
Yeah, definitely not the not one that's gonna. One wouldn't say it would be the wisest choice from a marketing perspective, but
I know, but well, if you know
nevertheless, one we thought would be good.
Well, and because it's two different partners wrote into us with some really heavy, quite devastating stories from these two partners. And I think it's important, Steve, as we open this up, first of all, any of you guys, either you're in addiction and you're not in recovery yet, or you're in recovery, we are not doing this topic and sharing these two partner stories and then everything that will follow in this podcast to beat you down or to get on your cases or to say that you're worthless, bad, terrible guys. This could not be more the opposite of that. Yeah. We realize that you cannot change what you are not willing or able to see. And we want to help all of you to see how this works, what the impact's been on your partners, so that you can have a clear view to now start to really make your whole plan and your path forward to actually change for real. So we want this whole podcast today to be a catalyst to help you to start moving forward.
Most of you listening to this are aware by this point, but it does bear. We don't mention this often to state the obvious, but do keep in mind, Mark and I are both addicts in long-term successful recovery. It's been quite some time since either one of us turned to addiction, and we've spent a lot of time and effort and work not only overcoming that, but the emotional issues and challenges and mental issues and challenges that accompanied said addiction. We're by no means perfect in that component, but we have made lots of progress and enjoy very happy lives and marriages these days, both married to our own original partners, by the way. Um, all that being said, we it hasn't been nearly long enough where we can't relate to both the pain of the partners that you're going to hear in these submissions, but also, frankly, the level of denial that is being exhibited by the addicts that you hear discussed here today. And so, hopefully, the way that this comes off is very forthright. It's very direct, but like Mark said, this isn't some sort of a cage match. We hope that you endure. We hope that this comes off as a very sincere plea from two guys who almost lost everything going down the same road you did
Absolutely.
and are
Absolutely.
going down right now.
Yep.
So hopefully that's the way that this comes. It's a plea, it's an implorement, it's a beg, it's a lot of things, but it's not
Well,
a
and I'm going to
slap you
say
across
something
the
else.
face.
It's an I love you from two of your brothers,
Yes.
because we wish
Beautiful.
someone had sat us down in the really deep, dark addiction days and had a talk like this with us.
Because Mark and I's stories, they are very different in some ways, but they're very similar in one, well, multiple ways, but in one key way. Both of our wives got to the brink and finally had the courage to tell us it's us or this. We're done.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And so you've got to decide. And we want you to avoid that crossroads. So if possible. So yeah, there's a lot to say. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and I'll read this first submission. Mark's going to read the second, then we will dive right in. Typically, we don't read submissions of this length, but frankly, they're so eloquent and the message is pretty heavy today. So we want you to be able to connect with why and relate that way. So here we go. Again, these both come from partners. And here's the first. Hi, Mark and Steve. I have been a listener of your podcast for years, and I am also a clinical professional. So she works somewhere in the mental health field. Thank you for providing a well-needed balance of both clinical expertise and personal experience with the added bonus of incorporating spiritual principles into your podcast. Of everything else available out there, your podcast, along with a few others, are my go-to sources in my ever-evolving journey. We appreciate that. Thank you very much for listening and for being here. My question today is surrounding financial fairness. My partner is a porn addict and through 6 years of discovery, not disclosure, has taken the agonizing choice of staggered quote unquote admittances or staggered disclosure rather than rather than a formal, actual, true, honest disclosure. He has worked with 9 therapists, 9, most of them CSATs, 2 different men's groups, 16 weeks long each, a total of 4 times, and has 5 different and has had 5 different sponsors. All the while, he was faking recovery and lying the entire time. He now admits to this, but 6 years of behind closed doors verbal and emotional abuse made its impact on my mental and emotional health. I was so stricken with anxiety and depression I could not work for the last 3 to 4 years. He openly watched porn throughout the house and often aroused himself to the point of being so irritable that he would take that frustration out on myself and even our kids through verbal and emotional abuse. I got help during the last 6 years from both my therapist and the CSATs we hired, but I cannot get well in this environment. He won't do the work and he won't leave. Since I'm not working, my financial security has become dependent on him. I found out years later that he has lied to his family and blamed quote my refusal to work unquote as the reason we are in financial devastation, rather than his porn use, misuse of therapy resources, and now chronic, and how chronic this has all become. He uses his job and money as a reason he can't go to treatment, which is only partially true. He only attends a meeting a week and just started seeing another CSAT. As the holidays approach and we can't pay our bills, this did come into us before Christmas. We're on a bit of a backlog here. He begins to blame me again. I have pulled rabbits out of hats to make ends meet and provide some semblance of maintaining my kids' quality of life. Doing all this while suffering my own credit and bank accounts closing and finding money to make up differences. I decided I can no longer figure it out for him. I feel like I'm left with an ultimatum every day. Either work a job in this marriage to provide and support a life I don't want to live with a full-grown adolescent, and she puts in parentheses, which inevitably I could not emotionally sustain like this, or 2, leave my home with the kids and uproot their lives to get away from this situation. And then she puts in parentheses, he had no home or possessions when we blended our family, or let this ship sink and I go down with it also. My question is, what is the financial responsibility of the addict versus the partner? Is it right for me to refuse to pay for and help get us out of the financial hole he has dug us both in, especially when he is not putting in the work and demanding that I do?
Mm.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's the first one. Let me read the second one, and then we'll launch into some really important insights. So this is also from a partner. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I've tried everything. My last relationship was with someone I considered to be a high-level porn addict, multiple hours a day, dating sites and in-person affairs, which is something my current partner knew when we first got together, and he was very supportive and understanding of when certain situations would be triggering for me. He told me he didn't understand why guys would look at things like that, especially when they were in a relationship, and that it was something he had never watched in his whole life. It was such an amazing feeling going from a relationship where I feel like I always had to be on guard to someone that only had eyes for me. He was my knight in shining armor. Imagine my surprise when I was on his computer one day and found his search history full of porn, specifically actresses. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I thought it was something we would be able to work through together with how great our communication seemed to be before all this happened and came out. That was almost 2 years ago now, and he has made little to no effort in healing what has been broken. The loving, caring guy I fell in love with seems to be gone. He won't listen to podcasts or do any of his own research to understand what I'm going through and what he can do to help me heal from this. Instead, he's just become silent and distant anytime I bring it up. Or he tells me that he's going to get better about it, but never actually following through on his promises, and only to get upset with me the next time I bring it up. The few times he has listened to a podcast or read an article was very obviously forced, not because he actually wanted to. He acts as if I should be okay just because he says he stopped the behavior. He has told me on multiple occasions that the reason he has such an issue trying to work on things is because I act like he's still doing all of it. That's not the case at all, but that has nothing to do with me being able to trust him now, but my own constant but there's always my own constant monitoring. It's like he thinks I should just be okay. And trying to talk about my pain is a type of punishment to him, and that I should be able to just move on. There was a period of time where we were having weekly check-ins, but that didn't last long before he stopped following through on that. I feel so lonely and broken. I feel like I've tried everything to try to get through to him, and it just seems like he doesn't care enough to put the effort in. I don't want to walk away, but I can't keep waiting for something that never comes. Can you help me explain what I need from him to heal, or do I just need to give up and walk away? Yeah, very heavy. You know, as Steve and I were reading these and preparing for this, because it's the holidays, I have a favorite. I love the A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and I have a favorite version, live version of that. There's Steve and I were just both saying we love the Muppets version, which is completely awesome. But there's a live version. It's just titled Scrooge, and it's a movie clear back from 1970. Albert Finney is Scrooge, and it's a musical. And in that musical, Albert Finney, Scrooge, is visited by the ghost of Christmas Present. And as the ghost of Christmas Present is visiting with Scrooge, Scrooge declares, "I am the most generous and loving man you've ever met," something to that effect. And the ghost says, "You have no idea what those words even mean." He says, "Here, drink some of this." And Scrooge takes a drink out of this big golden goblet, and he loves it. He's like, "Wow, that's amazing. What is it?" The ghost says, "It's the milk of human kindness," which Scrooge has never experienced. So now Scrooge is seeing Christmas Present as the ghost takes him to go see things, and he's seeing it through different eyes because he drank this elixir. And then they get to a place where the ghost needs Scrooge to take a realistic look at what he's done to his Clark, his Clark's life, paying him low wages, working him to the bone, and he wants Scrooge to see this man's family. And Scrooge says, "Can I have some more of the drink?" And the ghost says, "No, you need to see things as they are." It's a very poignant part of the movie. You need to see things as they are. This is one of the big reasons we're doing this particular episode is when all of you guys listening, you cannot change what you cannot or will not see. You need to see clearly what is the impact and the devastation that you've had on your partner's life and your families and your kids if you have them and lots of other things, but specifically your partner. I have a year-end practice of looking at my past year and making an assessment of it and how's it gone and what were the areas where things went well and things where I need to improve. And usually as part of that, I also start to reflect on my life. And it hit me especially hard. This was just last night, in fact, where I just felt a lot of sadness and regret about the impact and the devastation and the wreckage that I created for my wife because of my addiction, decades of addiction. And I didn't go to shame because I've learned the difference between sadness and regret and shame. But that reflection on those feelings and really looking at it through a clear, real pair of glasses are a big motivation for what changes I'm going to make going into this new year. And we want this clear look at these things to be a big motivation for each of you guys listening, right? Because that's not the approach I took for decades when I was in addiction. I avoided my feelings. I wasn't account able or response able. It was a constant cycle of stress, fear, pressure, insecurities, and lots of other emotions would build up. I'd go act out of my addiction to find escape and coping. Then I'd apologize and make promises to change. I wouldn't follow through, and then I would become resentful towards my wife, and moody and angry and stoic and unpredictable, and then that cycle continued for decades.
Yeah.
And so we want to help any of you who find yourself there. We want to help you break out of that, and we're going to help you take a really realistic look. What has the impact been on your partner? I had very little idea what that actually was in my addiction years. And part of me wasn't willing to look at it because it was too painful and too scary. But I also didn't even know how vast it was. So we wanted to give you an idea about what that looks like from decades and decades of clinical research and working with betrayed partners. A lot of this comes out of the excellent Minwala clinical research for nearly 25 years. Let's look at what the devastation is. What does that trail of wreckage look like?
Well, and I mean, I really appreciated when we were, producing this and getting ready for today, Mark bringing in the story of the Christmas Carol. It's one that both of us really enjoy. It's got a great message, but it is a stark one as well in many respects. And it has, thankfully, a happy conclusion. But one thing that I do appreciate about the the Christmas Carol, and even though it isn't clearly outlined this way in the way Dickens puts it, is that awesome. Like Scrooge makes these awesome changes, right? He begins to live differently. His financial clerk, who helps to run his business partner, along with his son Tiny Tim, others that work with him, the community as a whole, all begin to benefit as he becomes engaged and connected and present and wanting to give back and have relationships with people rather than taking and being distant. And there's a tremendous transformation that happens in the book or in the movie or whichever version you've watched, as well as for him internally. But like Mark just said, that doesn't undo the past.
And he could not have gotten there, if you are familiar with the story, which without an extreme look at the past and the present and the devastation of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the reality that we hope that we can implore on some of you right now is that many of you in the ship of life that you're sailing, it's on fire and it's sinking. Mm-hmm. And you're not even seeing it. You're not recognizing how close you are to catastrophe. We've read here 2 submissions from 2 partners where they are about to pull the lifeboat and sail away from the wreckage. Mm-hmm. They are right on the brink. One of them is kind of like fingering the emergency oar in her hand right now. right? And they're looking at what to do. And we understand that for many of you as addicts who are listening to this, better than most, the web of denial, justification, rationalization, post PTSD, uh, traumatic repetition, elements that coalesce in your story that bring you to the point that you are. We understand it's complicated. We understand that you're acting from a place of a lack of authenticity. We understand that in your mind, it doesn't seem as bad as it is, or as critical as it is, or as catastrophic as it is. But I think today we might be a little bit of Christmas future here in this podcast, if we're going to borrow from the Dickens, the Dickens story, because we care too much about you to allow you to go on, drinking and getting drunk on that quote unquote milk of human kindness, or enablement, or whatever or denial, or whatever it's been. Maybe it's a combination of all those things. We have to see you can't get where you need to go until you recognize where you really are. And where that starts, I think, for most of the men that we work with, is because there are lots of ways. I mean, Mark and I have talked about this before. There are many ways where he and I can go back and connect with our addict selves, and all the ways we justified how we acted and why and all those things. But one thing that neither one of us, even in our deepest states of addiction, neither one of us could deny one thing, that, like it or not, no matter what other factors we wanted to pull into play, we were in breach of contract in our marriages. Our wives had signed up under an agreement, whether you call that spiritual or otherwise. We'd enter into a contract. We said we were going to provide X, Y, and Z, and we botched it. We backed out. And not only did we back out, but then we continued to use various tactics to try to apply pressure to our partners to continue on in said contract, and to even make up some of the difference on our end.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Wherever you are in this situation, guys, wherever you are, whether you're in advanced recovery, beginning recovery, completely in this delusional state, and this podcast is for you, every guy listening to this we are all, ourselves included, have been guilty of breach of contract. We have to be able to embrace that.
Hey, everybody, Mark and Steve with a special holiday offer. We know that the holidays can be tough when you're dealing with addiction and betrayal trauma healing. And we know that as tough as they are, they also bring hope. How many of you guys remember this time last year when you said, you know what, this next year, 2025, is going to be the last year.
Oh, man.
We have this addiction. We're going to fix this relationship. We're going to get ourselves on track. And now here we are a year later. So make this the year, 2026, that you finally get this crazy mess out of your lives, both addicts and partners in healing. So from December 15th, 2025 through January 31st, 2026, in addition to the 2-week free trial that we always do, we're going to give you another $150 off of your first month's subscription.
All you got to do, guys, is at checkout, enter the coupon code 150 off D2C, all caps, no spaces. And, honestly, when it comes to promotions that we do throughout the year, this is by far the best one that we do. That means for you and your partner, if you do the math, that's 6 weeks total of the Dare to Connect program, okay? For less than $150. I don't care where you live in the United States or anywhere else. That is less than the cost of a single therapy session. If you really want to start 2026 off right, jump into Dare to Connect, go to daretoconnectnow.com, enter in that coupon code 150 off D2C, and we hope to see you there in 2026.
And part of the devastation was our partners continued on honoring that contract, right, assuming we were doing the same.
Yes.
But we changed the rules of the game. Often
we didn't even say we were backing out.
Nope, we just did it because another part of this devastation, this impact, is that it's this chronic deception and the manipulation of reality. Right? As addicts, we maintained a hidden sexual life, a secret sexual basement, as Minwala calls it, while upstairs in the regular life and the people upstairs, our marriage, our kids, our families, our jobs, or whatever, we were presenting a false self to our partners. We were lying, directly lying. We were lying by omission. We were minimizing. We were selectively telling the truth. And over time, this fractured our partner's ability to trust her own perceptions. What's real and what's not, I don't know. And that's because we were engaging in chronic deception and the manipulation of reality.
Yeah.
That's part of the devastation.
Well, not only that, I mean, and Mark kind of alluded to this, but let's put some names to and some terms to what's going on here, right? Psychological and emotional abuse,
Mm,
guys. By definition, okay, if we are engaging in what again, Dr. Manwala terms intentionally manipulated reality, if we're creating an IMR, intentionally manipulated reality that our partners are living in, that we are living in as a part of that, whatever else is going on there, you cannot do that without engaging in various forms of psychological and emotional abuse. Dr. Minwala zeroes in on it, and he coined a term for that he refers to as integrity abuse. Now, we're not going to get into that much today in terms of the specifics of what that entails. We did a really good podcast on that, 3 or 4 episodes, Mark, I believe.
yeah, we did.
Um,
We
so
did.
if you go back, I think it was episode 309 or 310. If that resonates with you on some level, it's gotten some of the most positive feedback we've gotten in a long time on a podcast episode. So we'd encourage you to go listen to that. But this is a situation more or less where a partner is placed in an impossible position. They can feel that something is wrong, but they're repeatedly told what? No, that smoke that you smell, it's not smoke, it's flowers. Didn't you hear? There's a new breed of flowers, smoke flowers. They make smoke. Right now, I'm being a little bit facetious, but that is what when we are withholding reality or manipulating reality or both. Most of us addicts do a really unique blend of both of those, some sort of unique concoction. We are engaging in an emotional and psychological abuse of the highest order. We deprive our partners of what? Sovereignty and choice. And we deny them the respect that any person deserves in a relationship, especially in the most intimate of ones, which is to allow a person to consent or not consent to remain in said relationship.
Yep. Yep. And it's become a very well used phrase. We gaslight. It's called gaslighting.
Yes.
And I'm not the crazy one. You are. I'm not the problem. You are. Right. And this causes enormous confusion for partners, self-doubt, anxiety, hyper-vigilance, where they have to become detectives and policewomen to try to stay safe. It literally destabilizes them emotionally,
Yeah.
mentally, physically, spiritually. Yeah.
Well, and again, we want to I want to be quick to say that what I'm going to say next, and also what we've covered here as well at up to this point in time, guys, please keep in mind, some of us have done this very much intentionally and nefariously. Some of us have also not done that, and it's been a survival mechanism that we didn't recognize as something that we were doing intentionally. But
Yeah.
do keep in mind that while we will give that to you, and that's important to recognize in the healing journey, reasons do not diminish accountability. I mean, I very much fall into this category. There were many times where I really tried. Mark's and I's stories are a little bit different this way. I tried very hard to be as transparent with my wife as possible the vast majority of the time I was in addiction. But I also, by the same token, was what? Not taking the time or putting in the energy to figure out what the hell was really going on with me. I just thought I had a little porn issue, quote unquote, whatever the hell that meant. And I continued to operate in that place of denial in part because I didn't want to know. I
Mm.
didn't want to look. I didn't want to see it for what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the reality, right? That's the truth. And so even in those situations, we still are accountable for those things. But this exploit, so whether we do it intentionally or not, guys, and whether we've meant to or not, many of us have also, not all, but many of us have been guilty, again, intentionally or not, of taking the very trust, the attachment, and the vulnerability that a partner brings into a relationship and leveraging it as pressure to get a partner to do various things, whether that's stay when they shouldn't, whether that's not holding boundaries when they ought to, whether that's sexually performing or engaging with us when it's not safe for them or authentic to do so. That kind of pressure takes lots of forms, but again, a very much a form of emotional abuse. And all the while, keep in mind, not only is that happening and we're leveraging those things, but oftentimes it is in coupleship with that deception we've been talking about.
Well, and the thing that, as I reflect on those decades, the thing that really hits me today was I was benefiting from my partner's total love, total loyalty, her emotional labors, all the stuff that she, even sexual availability, while I was secretly violating the very agreements that were the reason she was doing all those things.
Yeah.
I was getting all the benefits with very little of the commitment. Yeah, such
Addiction too often is the ultimate expression of having your cake and trying to eat it too.
trying to eat it too. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Um, and here's the other thing, Steve. My partner, she never consented to a relationship with me that included porn use, sexual secrecy, objectification, scanning, my divided loyalties and divided intimacy. She never agreed to that, consented to that relationship, right? Her consent was violated, not necessarily through sex acts, but through withheld truth. I did not allow my partner to engage in informed consent about whether she wanted to be with me and choose me and continue in our relationship. I made sure that she didn't have the total information because I was scared of what? That she'll leave me. So I kept it secret, right? That's a forced relationship where one partner's not giving consent with being informed or given all the information.
Yeah.
I think of the abuse of that.
I mean, it's interesting, guys. If we were to put this, and I know this probably resonates with some of our listeners because we addicts, but also men, and this is just a generalization, but we tend to be kind of more logified or logic brained. Logic brained. Think about this like a business partnership, right? And you read about this in the news. One business partner or one half of a merger lies to the other one for years or decades about profits, about profit margins, income, and allows the one half of the business to operate under one premise while the other one is siphoning off money, embezzling until the company is run dry. And then they turn around and blame the other person.
Mm.
If you read about that in the news, how would you feel?
Yeah, that's a
I can
good
tell you how
one.
I'd be feel. I
Mm.
hope they take that. I hope they throw the book straight at that guy and they take him for. I hope they sue him and I hope they take him for everything they're worth. That'd be
Yeah,
my response, like my authentic response if I read about that.
yeah,
But how often would we look at it that way? But then somehow when we apply it to an emotional relationship where there's even more on the line, so much more than money, we somehow what? We somehow make it okay
yeah,
or not as bad. When in
yeah,
fact it's just the opposite.
exactly.
This is so much more than business. This is a person's life that we are manipulating, right?
Let's look at a couple of others as we finish up here. This was a big one for me: sexual harm and attachment injury. We call it sexual intimacy. If you could call it intimacy on my part, I think it was devoid of a lot of intimacy. It was very transactional sexuality with my wife. But it was contaminated because of me by my secrecy, by fantasy intrusions, by comparison of her, her body to the bodies of all the thousands or hundreds of thousands of bodies seen in porn. My emotional absence, right? I was there but not there. And this has a dramatic impact on partners of all different kinds of results. Some partners experience sexual shutdown, sexual repulsion, body shame, trauma responses, not because they are, quote, frigid, but because their nervous system no longer feels safe. Even if they don't know exactly what's going on yet, because he's still hiding, they still know that something's not right about this. Something's not safe. And they can experience severe nervous system symptoms and results because of it.
Well, and they find difficult. I mean, the tragedy with that is, among other things, is that let's say that your marriage does not work out. Is your partner walking out of there with the same capacity to form a new one as they walked in?
Mm.
You're blinding yourself if you think that's
Yeah.
true.
Or yeah, yeah, extreme,
The amount of work that we see partners put in after something like that simply to get back to a place of connecting on an intimate level again, it's difficult to quantify,
yeah,
gentlemen.
after all that devastation. This other one, this was a huge one for me: chronic neglect and emotional abandonment. While physically present, the addict is emotionally unavailable. He's preoccupied, dissociated, defensive, entitled. For me, moody, stoic, right? Angry, the betrayed partner experiences long-term loneliness inside the relationship.
Yeah,
Long-term loneliness inside the relationship. Think of that. It's huge.
absolutely. Um, guys, there's others on this list. We know that our time grows short here, but one that I definitely wanted to mention, and we have it in our production notes as something different, but I'm gonna kind of go with that business analogy for a second, and I'm gonna talk about opportunity cost for a minute, because
Opportunity cost. That
that would
is,
be the equivalent, right?
yep.
If you take your money, let's say you take $10,000 and you invest it in a business for 10 years, and let's say that the business goes belly up, or they lied to you, right? It was a bad business venture. There was a lot of deception that went on. If you look at popular, well publicized scandals like the Enron scandal and others where people's money was lost, because of, manipulation and deceit and all sorts of things. There isn't just the loss of the money itself. What else is there? There's what's called an opportunity cost. Not only is that person out, say they're $10,000, but what are they out? The last 5 to 10 years or whatever it's been that they had that money invested there when they could have been doing something else with it.
Mm-hmm.
So not only have they lost their principal, ergo in a relationship, not only have they lost everything that they gave to this relationship, now what have they lost? The capacity to be able to have formed, frankly, better, more healthy, more engaging, more beneficial relationships otherwise.
Yep. Yep.
Because we formed this reality or applied various pressure tactics to perpetuate something when we were not willing to live up to our end of the bargain.
Yeah. Yeah. How many we've heard partners say, I gave you the best years of my life.
Yeah.
And now look where I am. Right. The only other one here I want to point out, because this one really hit home with me, power and control through withholding or controlling information. Right. Think about this. The addict is the one controlling what is known, when it is known, and how much is known. And he maintains power over his partner who continues to live in confusion and lack of information. That imbalance is inherently abusive. I control what's known, when it's known, and how much is known. My partner has no power over it because I'm controlling the whole thing as the addict. Crazy, right?
Yeah. Guys, there's so much more that we could do. Our time does grow short. We're gonna close with two things. One, I'm gonna read something to you, but also we want to give some. Maybe we'll start with this because these two partners asked us questions, and we should give them answers before we end this. Just speaking to the addicts out there. My thoughts on that, and we'll see what Mark wants to add to it, would be that for both of these spouses, even though these are very different situations, neither submission that we read today, as difficult as they were, doesn't really make clear to what degree these partners have laid out for their addict partner uh, where they really are,
Mm,
right? What's really on the line, how close they are to leaving, what their needs are or aren't. I'm sure that those have been conveyed in different ways. That's very common in the dynamic that Mark and I see with the clients that we work with, whether it's in D2C or otherwise. But oftentimes there hasn't been a real straight talk about this is where things stand. And if that has not happened, even though we recognize that's a difficult conversation and even a scary one to have in different ways, we would lovingly but pretty forcefully invite these partners, whether it's in a therapy session, it's in a letter, it's in a documented legal document. Maybe that's the safest approach. Whatever it is, whatever is going to denote safety, that needs to be communicated to that addict partner. Okay, this is where things really are, because we're not helping our own cause or the cause of the relationship by allowing them to likewise operate in some level of denial. What they do with that, what the addict partner does with that information is their business.
yeah.
But we do need to as partners, it's important that you very clearly outline, if you find yourself in a similar situation to this, that you use your voice in whatever way is effective and and safe, and you lay out very clearly, this is where we are, this is what's happening, and this is where we are headed if this does not change now.
Yep. Here's exactly what has to change and by when, with
And you get
accountability.
to decide. You get to
And,
decide what to do with that.
and then as a betrayed partner, you must implement the full outcome or consequences of those boundaries that you clearly set. You
Correct.
must follow through. Yeah.
So that absolutely needs to happen. And we just have nothing but love for both of these partners. To the one partner who brought up the financial dynamic, I'll just answer that from my personal and or clinical perspective based on what she's written. Just take that with a huge caveat. No, I don't think that she should continue to bear the financial burden of carrying this addict through financial woes and difficulties. 9 CSATs, if you're halfway serious about recovery, is about 8 too many. Just being as straight with you as I can. If I was a partner that was to continue to invest in this, and he was really sincere about recovery, I can't tell you what exactly that should look like. If I'm that partner willing to even attempt to give this relationship more time or another chance or whatever, or if that's even a point that she's at. But at a baseline, I'd be requiring a hell of a lot more than attending a meeting 1 week, sitting in the back of the room playing Angry Birds on his phone. There would be a whole list of accountability tied to that. There would be multiple meetings, and there would be him making sacrifices to accommodate the additional expense of whether that's treatment again or whatever the case is. And frankly, I think that there would be a time, now may not be the time to review it, but some sort of, if you look at the 12-step process of amends that we teach oftentimes in our Dare to Connect program, daretoconnectnow.com, we'd love to have you guys come join us. Amends means a meaningful attempt at restoration of the past. I don't pretend to know what that looks like in a relationship here, but I think that it ought to involve some sort of sacrifice on his part to try to, if it's just in a token way, try to recognize the sacrifice that she's made and try to make some of that whole in some way.
I agree.
So anyway, those are just my thoughts. Mark, anything you want to add to those? I know we got so into the message to addicts today.
I just want to add, guys, as I think back now, as I put on my pair of reality glasses about what exactly I did to my partner, to the relationship, the wreckage and devastation that I really created for decades, my total heartfelt inclination and, quite frankly, kind of mission for the rest of my life is to live in complete and utter total gratitude for the fact that my partner's still here. It amazes me on a daily basis. And I express that appreciation, and I am big into acting on genuine amends on a daily basis in our relationship. That this woman is still here after everything I put her through, I will be in awe the rest of my life. And I hope that every guy listening can start to get a real grasp on what that means, right? And again, this is not to beat you addicts down. This is us inviting you to look at this new year, or if you're listening to it any other time, tomorrow as being the next day, the new beginning, that you can start to do something about this. And because you're starting to see clearly and own your side of the street on this, and then realize just how incredibly blessed you are to have this betrayer, this betrayed partner that's willing to continue to walk the path in whatever fashion that is. Such a huge thing. Please see it, guys. Please see it.
Yeah, you absolutely can do it. I'm going to close with a heavily amended submission that was sent to us from a longtime listener recently. Okay. So I'll redact a couple of pieces as I go through this, but we thought it would be good to share this as we wrap up today. After almost 30 years together, he says, "Hi, Mark and Steve. After almost 30 years together, we are going to divorce. My wife has decided, rightfully so, that I am unable to lead out with my recovery and that she has actually exceeded," he puts in parentheses, "her limit of he says bullshit. I'll just read it like it is. I like his kind of language. He's my kind of guy. I have shared in groups in recent memory that nearly 30 years ago I took a hostage, and that is the truth. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I never deserved her. I pray that some miracle happens in the next while to prevent this, but I have long ago exceeded my miracle limit from this partner of mine. I just wanted to thank you both for what you do. You gave me all the answers and tools, but I never had the courage or dedication to use them per your instructions. And now this is his words. We don't completely agree with this. I am so pathetically weak. I love you guys, and we'll miss you both. If you would, please keep us both in your prayers." Mm-hmm. Guys, whatever you take from this podcast today, wherever you find yourself, can you at least make the commitment that this is not going to be my story? Don't let this become your story. It doesn't have to be. There are parts of that submission that we don't completely agree with. We think he is of far more value than I think than he was feeling when he sent this to us a while back. But we do appreciate a lot of the accountability in there. Please, when you hear hard things but true things, or things that resonate on some level, please don't just dismiss it or throw it under the table. And I'll be honest with you, there is no better time than the beginning of the year to check out a program like Dare to Connect. If you like these podcasts, even though they may be hard, I would say, maybe I'll say it this way. If you appreciated today's podcast, even though it may not have been what you legitimately liked, then you will love the Dare to Connect program. We are here 4 days a week with addicts, partners, and couples in 4 different group settings that are live and interactive. We have a wealth of advanced courses in D2C Academy. We retain for 2 to 3 weeks recorded sessions for your viewing and to catch up. Constant assignments and handouts with diagrams and everything else that demonstrate what we teach. As of the recording of this, we're just launching into the basics and fundamentals about the cycle and nature of both addiction and betrayal trauma. And we're going to be tying that in with the deeper internal family systems roots that carries here in the next couple of months. There is not a better time to start this. Whether you're listening to this in 2026, right after it was submitted, or another year, let 2026 or 2030 or whatever year it is be your last. Come join us at Dare to Connect. We'd love to come have you grab a 2-week free trial at daretoconnectnow.com. That's daretoconnectnow.com. Thank you for being here and for being with us today on the podcast.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.